I caught my brother-in-law cheating on my sister at my own wedding, and when I told her, my entire family turned on me for ruining her marriage. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I never thought my wedding day would end up destroying my relationship with my entire family, but here we are. It's been 8 months since everything fell apart, and I'm still trying to process how telling the truth made me the villain in everyone's eyes. Let me start from the beginning. My sister Emma and I used to be close. We're only 2 years apart, and growing up, we did everything together. She was my maid of honor. I was hers when she married Derek 3 years ago. Our parents always called us the twins, even though we looked nothing alike. Emma was the prettier one, the charming one, the one who could talk her way out of anything. I was the responsible one, the one who planned ahead, the one who always tried to keep the peace. Derek seemed perfect for Emma when they first got together. He was charming, successful, and he clearly adored her. My parents loved him immediately. Dad would always joke that Derek was the son he never had, and Mom would gush about how handsome they looked together. Even I liked him at first. He treated Emma like a princess, always surprising her with gifts and romantic gestures. They had this fairy tale relationship that everyone envied. But I started noticing little things after they got married. Derek would make comments about other women when Emma wasn't around. Nothing too obvious, just lingering looks or remarks about how attractive someone was. When I was planning my wedding, he offered to help with vendor recommendations since he knew people all over the city. He was overly helpful, actually. Always texting me about wedding stuff, offering to handle things that my fiancé, Jake, could have easily done. I should have trusted my instincts, but I didn't want to create drama. Emma seemed happy, and Derek was family now. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. The wedding planning was stressful enough without family drama. Jake and I had been together for 4 years, and we wanted something intimate but beautiful. We chose a small venue with an outdoor ceremony and indoor reception. Emma was incredible as my maid of honor, helping with every detail. She was so excited, constantly posting about it on social media, calling it the wedding of the century, even though we were only having 60 guests. Our parents were over the moon. Dad kept tearing up during the rehearsal dinner, talking about how proud he was of both his daughters. Mom was in full mother of the bride mode, making sure everything was perfect. Even Derek seemed genuinely happy for us, giving a sweet speech about how Jake was lucky to marry into such an amazing family. The wedding day itself was magical. The weather was perfect, the ceremony went off without a hitch, and everyone was having a great time at the reception. I felt like I was floating. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and for most of it, it was. The reception was in full swing around 9 p.m. when I went looking for my phone. I'd left it in the bridal suite to charge during the ceremony. The venue was a restored mansion, and the bridal suite was on the 2nd floor, down a long hallway from the main staircase. As I walked up the stairs, I could hear music and laughter from the reception below. Everyone was having such a good time. I was almost to the bridal suite when I heard voices coming from one of the guest rooms. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see a sliver of light. I wouldn't have paid attention, but I recognized Derek's laugh. I thought maybe he was on a work call or something, so I was going to knock and let him know the cake cutting was starting soon. But then I heard a woman's voice, and it definitely wasn't Emma's. I froze. The rational part of my brain was screaming at me to just walk away, to mind my own business, to not get involved. But something made me creep closer to the door. Maybe it was the way they were talking, low and intimate, or maybe it was the fact that Derek was supposed to be downstairs with his wife. What I saw through that crack in the door will be burned into my memory forever. Derek was with Jake's cousin Melissa, and they were, well, let's just say they weren't discussing the weather. They were all over each other, completely oblivious to anything else. This wasn't some innocent moment that could be explained away. This was full-blown cheating, happening at my wedding, while Derek's wife was downstairs celebrating with the rest of the family. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, completely frozen. Part of me couldn't believe what I was seeing. Derek, who supposedly loved Emma so much, who had given that beautiful speech just hours earlier about family and commitment, and Melissa, who had been chatting with me earlier about how lovely the wedding was. I backed away from the door as quietly as I could and practically ran to the bridal suite. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab my phone. I sat on the little couch in there for maybe 10 minutes, just trying to process what I'd witnessed. This was my wedding day. I was supposed to be downstairs dancing with my new husband, not dealing with family drama. but I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen it. Emma deserved to know. She was my sister, and she was being betrayed by the man she trusted most. How could I look her in the eye and act like everything was normal? I went back downstairs and tried to act natural, but I felt sick. Every time I looked at Derek, who was now back at the reception acting like the perfect husband, I wanted to scream. He was dancing with Emma, twirling her around, and she was laughing and looking at him with such love. It was nauseating. Jake noticed something was wrong immediately. "You okay, babe? You look pale." I wanted to tell him, but not here, not now. This was our wedding reception. "I'm fine, just tired. It's been a long day." The rest of the reception was torture. I watched Derek charm everyone, take photos with Emma, and give another speech during the cake cutting about how marriage was about trust and commitment. The irony was suffocating. Meanwhile, Melissa was mingling like nothing had happened, complimenting my dress and asking about the honeymoon. Jake and I left for our honeymoon the next morning. We were going to Italy for 2 weeks, something we'd been planning and saving for all year. I should have been over the moon, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. I kept going back and forth about whether to tell Emma. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe it didn't mean anything. Maybe I should just stay out of it. But then I thought about how I'd feel if I were in Emma's position. If Jake were cheating on me, I'd want to know. I'd want my sister to tell me, even if it hurt. Especially if it hurt. I called Emma 3 days into the honeymoon. She was so excited to hear from me, gushing about how beautiful the wedding was and how everyone was still talking about it. She sounded so happy, so in love with her life. It made what I had to tell her even harder. "Em, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be difficult to hear." The excitement in her voice died immediately. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I told her everything. About seeing Derek and Melissa, about how long it went on, about how they were clearly comfortable with each other in a way that suggested this wasn't their first time. I tried to be gentle but honest. I told her I was sorry, that I didn't want to ruin her happiness, but that she deserved to know the truth. The silence on the other end of the line lasted forever. Finally, Emma spoke, and her voice was completely different. Cold. "Are you sure about what you saw?" "Yes, I'm sure." "I'm so sorry, Emma. I know this is horrible, but I couldn't keep it from you. I need time to process this. I'll call you back." She hung up, and I didn't hear from her for the rest of my honeymoon. I texted a few times, just to check in and let her know I was there if she needed to talk. No response. When Jake and I got back from Italy, I expected to find Emma in crisis mode, maybe staying at our parents' house, maybe filing for divorce. Instead, I found out that she had told Derek about our conversation, and Derek had convinced her that I was lying. According to Emma, Derek was devastated that I would make up such a horrible story about him. He claimed he had been on a work call in that room, and that I must have misunderstood what I saw. He suggested that maybe I was jealous of their happiness, or maybe I was stressed about my own wedding and imagined things that weren't there. Emma bought it completely. She called me the day after we got back. "We need to talk." I thought she wanted to discuss what to do about Derek, maybe ask for more details about what I'd seen. Instead, she wanted to confront me about lying. "How could you make up something so awful?" she asked. "Derek loves me. He would never cheat on me. And to say it happened at your own wedding? That's sick." I tried to explain again what I'd seen, but she cut me off. Derek told me he was on a work call. He showed me his phone records. He was talking to a client in California about a time-sensitive deal. "Emma, I know what I saw. This wasn't a phone call. They were." "Stop. Just stop. I don't know why you're doing this, but it needs to end. Derek is my husband, and I trust him. If you can't accept that, then we have a problem." That conversation was the beginning of the end of my relationship with Emma. But it got so much worse. Derek, apparently, wasn't content to just convince Emma that I was lying. He went to my parents and told them about my accusations. He painted himself as the victim, a devoted husband being attacked by his jealous sister-in-law. He suggested that maybe I was having problems in my own marriage and was projecting onto theirs. My parents called me, and I could hear the disappointment in their voices before they even said anything. "Honey, Derek came to us very upset," Mom said. "He says you've been spreading rumors about him cheating. Is this true?" I explained what happened, just like I had with Emma. I told them I would never make something like this up, that I saw what I saw, and that I only told Emma because she deserved to know. But they had already made up their minds. "Sweetheart, we know you mean well, but Derek has been part of this family for 3 years. We know him. He's not the type of person who would do something like this," Dad said. Maybe you misunderstood what you saw. Weddings are stressful and sometimes our minds can play tricks on us. I didn't imagine it, Dad. I know what I saw. Well, even if you think you saw something, you should have talked to us first before going to Emma. This kind of accusation can destroy a marriage. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were more concerned about preserving Derek's reputation than protecting Emma from being cheated on. Things escalated from there. Derek convinced Emma to post about the situation on social media. She didn't name me directly, but anyone who knew our family would understand who she was talking about. The post said something like, "Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who try to tear you down." It's heartbreaking when family members spread lies and try to destroy your happiness out of jealousy. Thankfully, I have an amazing husband who supports me through everything, even when others try to poison our marriage with false accusations. The post got dozens of supportive comments from family and friends, all rallying around Emma and Derek. People were saying things like, "Some people can't stand to see others happy, and jealousy is such an ugly thing." A few people even messaged me directly, asking what was wrong with me and how I could be so cruel to my own sister. I tried to defend myself, but it was impossible. I couldn't prove what I'd seen, and Derek had crafted his narrative perfectly. He was the loving husband being attacked by his unstable sister-in-law. Emma was the victim of family betrayal. I was the jealous, lying troublemaker. Jake was incredible through all of this. He believed me completely and was furious at how my family was treating me. "I know you, and I know you would never make something like this up," he said. "Your family is being ridiculous." But even Jake's support couldn't make up for losing my entire family. Emma stopped talking to me completely. My parents would barely speak to me, and when they did, it was to suggest that I should apologize to Derek and Emma for the misunderstanding. The worst part was family gatherings. Emma and Derek would show up looking like the perfect couple, and everyone would fawn over them. Meanwhile, I was treated like I had some kind of contagious disease. Conversations would stop when I entered a room. People would avoid eye contact. It was like I had become the family pariah overnight. At my cousin's birthday party 2 months after the wedding, Derek actually came up to me and tried to have a heart-to-heart. "I know you probably thought you saw something that night," he said, with this condescending smile. "But I hope you can understand how hurtful it's been for Emma and me. Maybe we can move past this if you're willing to admit you made a mistake." The audacity was breathtaking. This man had cheated on my sister at my wedding, convinced her I was lying, turned my entire family against me, and now he wanted me to apologize to him. "I know what I saw, Derek. And deep down, so do you." His friendly mask slipped for just a second, and I saw something cold and calculating in his eyes. Then he put the smile back on. "I'm sorry you feel that way. I hope someday you can find peace with this." He walked away and immediately went to Emma, probably to report that I was still being difficult. I left the party early. The breaking point came about 4 months after my wedding. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Melissa, Jake's cousin, the woman I'd seen Derek with. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, which confirmed what I already knew. "Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?" "I'm fine, Melissa. How are you?" She fidgeted with her purse strap. "I heard about the situation with your family. I'm sorry you're going through that." Something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. She seemed guilty, nervous. "Melissa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Were you with Derek in that room at my wedding?" She looked around the grocery store like she was checking to see if anyone was listening. Then she looked back at me with tears in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "But please don't tell anyone. He said it was over with his wife, that they were getting divorced. I didn't know he was lying until I saw them together at your cousin's party. I feel terrible about everything." Finally, someone was confirming what I knew to be true. But instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt exhausted. "Are you willing to tell Emma the truth?" Melissa shook her head frantically. "I can't. It would ruin everything. My family, Derek's family, everyone would hate me. Please don't ask me to do that." And there it was. Even with a witness, even with confirmation, nothing was going to change. Melissa was too afraid to speak up, and without her testimony, I was still just the jealous sister making up stories. I didn't tell Jake about running into Melissa right away. I needed time to think about what it meant. I had been vindicated in my own mind, but it didn't change anything about my situation with my family. If anything, knowing for sure that Derek was a cheater and that everyone was protecting him made it worse. 2 weeks later, Jake and I were having dinner when my phone rang. It was Emma, calling for the first time in months. I almost didn't answer. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Her voice sounded strange, shaky. What's wrong? Can you come over? Derek's not here. He's on a business trip. I drove to Emma's house with a mixture of hope and dread. Maybe she had figured out the truth. Maybe Derek had slipped up somehow. Maybe this nightmare was finally going to end. Emma answered the door looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was messy, her eyes were red, and she was wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants. This was not the put-together woman who had been posting happy couple photos on social media. Emma, what's going on? She led me to the living room, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then she looked at me with this broken expression. I found something on Derek's phone. My heart started racing. What did you find? Text messages. With multiple women. Going back months. Her voice cracked. One of them mentioned meeting him at a wedding. At your wedding. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I think you were telling the truth. And I think I've been horrible to you. The relief I felt was overwhelming, but it was mixed with anger and sadness. Emma, I'm so sorry. She started crying. I was so scared that you were right that I convinced myself you were lying. Derek was so convincing, and I wanted to believe him so badly. I turned our whole family against you because I couldn't face the truth. I wanted to hug her, to tell her it was okay, that we could fix this. But months of being treated like a pariah by my own family had taken a toll. The damage wasn't something that could be undone with a simple apology. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. I confronted him over the phone, and he's denying everything. He says the texts are from work colleagues, that I'm misinterpreting things. He's flying home early to work things out. Emma, you know that's not true. I know, but it's so hard. 3 years of my life, our house, our plans, everything is built on lies. We talked for 2 hours. Emma told me about all the red flags she had ignored, all the times Derek had been suspicious or distant. She apologized over and over for not believing me, for turning the family against me, for the social media posts that had humiliated me. I don't know how to fix this with Mom and Dad, she said. They're so invested in Derek being the perfect son-in-law. They're going to be devastated. That's not your problem, Emma. You didn't create this situation. Derek did. When I got home that night, I told Jake everything. He was relieved that Emma finally knew the truth, but he was also angry about how long it had taken and how much damage had been done to our relationship with my family. It's good that she knows now, but this doesn't undo months of them treating you like garbage, he said. An apology doesn't fix everything. He was right. I was glad Emma knew the truth, but I wasn't ready to just forgive and forget. Too much had happened. Emma called me the next day. Derek had come home, and they'd had a massive fight. He was still denying the affairs, claiming the text messages were innocent, insisting that Emma was being paranoid and letting me poison her mind again. He actually said that you've always been jealous of our relationship and that you're manipulating me into destroying my marriage, Emma said. Even now, with evidence right in front of him, he's still trying to make you the villain. That was Derek's fatal mistake. By continuing to attack me even when caught, he showed Emma exactly who he really was. She filed for divorce that week. But my parents were a different story. When Emma told them about the text messages and the divorce, they were shocked and devastated. Derek had been like a son to them, and losing him felt like losing a child. Instead of being angry at Derek for lying to them, they seemed more upset about the situation in general. Mom called me crying. I can't believe this is happening. Derek seemed so perfect for Emma. How could we have been so wrong about him? I wanted to point out that I had tried to tell them Derek wasn't perfect, but I held my tongue. I'm sorry this is happening, Mom. I know you cared about him. I keep thinking about how he treated you after the wedding. We should have listened to you. It was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get, but it felt hollow. They had chosen Derek over their own daughter, and now they were sad that their golden boy had turned out to be a fraud. There was no acknowledgement of how deeply they had hurt me, no real accountability for their actions. Dad was even worse. When I talked to him, he seemed more concerned about what people would think than about the pain Emma was going through. This is going to be such a mess, he said. Everyone in town knows Derek. The divorce is going to be public, and people are going to ask questions. I just don't understand how this happened. It happened because Derek is a cheater and a liar, Dad. That's how it happened. I know. I wish you had handled it differently back then. Maybe if you had come to us first, we could have dealt with it privately. Even now, even with proof that I had been right all along, he was still suggesting that I had handled the situation wrong. Like it was my fault that Derek was a cheater, or my fault that they had chosen not to believe me. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Derek fought Emma on everything, trying to keep as much of their shared assets as possible. He hired an expensive lawyer and dragged the process out for months. Through it all, he maintained his innocence, claiming that Emma was having a breakdown and that I was manipulating her. Some people believed him. A few family friends reached out to me, suggesting that maybe Emma and Derek could work things out if I stopped interfering. Even some of my extended family seemed to think I was somehow responsible for the divorce. But Emma stood firm. She had seen the evidence, and she wasn't going to be gaslit anymore. She moved out of their house and stayed with our parents while the divorce was finalized. It was awkward for everyone, but it gave Emma and me a chance to rebuild our relationship. We started having coffee together once a week, just the two of us. It was stilted at first. There was so much hurt and broken trust between us. But gradually, we started to reconnect. Emma would tell me about the divorce proceedings, and I would update her on my life with Jake. We avoided talking about the family dynamics or the months when we weren't speaking. One day, about 6 months after Emma had learned the truth, she brought up the social media post she had made about me. "I need to make this right," she said. "I publicly humiliated you, and I need to publicly apologize." "Emma, you don't have to do that. It's in the past." "No, it's not in the past. People saw that post. Our family, our friends, Jake's family. They all think you're some kind of troublemaker who makes up stories. I need to set the record straight." She posted a long apology on Facebook, explaining that she had been wrong to doubt me and that I had been telling the truth about Derek's infidelity. She took full responsibility for not believing me and for turning the family against me. She asked people to respect our privacy as we worked to rebuild our relationship. The post got a lot of attention. Some people were supportive and apologetic. Others seemed skeptical, like they couldn't believe Derek was really a cheater. A few people even suggested that Emma was only saying this to justify her divorce. But it meant everything to me that Emma was willing to publicly admit she had been wrong. It was a big step in rebuilding our trust. The divorce was finalized 8 months after Emma first confronted Derek. She got to keep the house and most of their shared assets, since Derek's infidelity had violated their prenup. Derek moved to another city for work, and we rarely heard from him after that. Emma seemed relieved but also lost. She had spent 3 years building a life with someone who turned out to be a complete fraud. She was starting over at 31, and it was scary. "I keep thinking about all the signs I ignored," she told me one day. The way he would disappear for hours, the way he was always on his phone, the way he would get defensive when I asked simple questions. I saw all of it, but I didn't want to believe it. "You trusted your husband. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. But you saw through him. You knew something was wrong. I wasn't married to him." It's easier to see red flags when you're not emotionally invested. Our parents struggled to adjust to the new reality. They had to admit to their friends and extended family that Derek, the man they had bragged about for 3 years, was actually a serial cheater who had destroyed their daughter's marriage. It was embarrassing for them, and they handled it poorly. Instead of focusing on supporting Emma, they seemed more concerned with managing their own reputation. Mom would make comments about how no one could have predicted this, and how Derek had fooled everyone. Dad would change the subject whenever Derek's name came up. They never really apologized to me for not believing me. Oh, they said things like, "We're sorry this whole situation happened," and "We wish things had been different," but they never took responsibility for choosing Derek over their own daughter. They never acknowledged how deeply they had hurt me or how their actions had damaged our relationship. Jake and I started spending less time with my parents. It wasn't a conscious decision at first, but gradually we found ourselves declining invitations and making excuses to avoid family gatherings. Being around them was a constant reminder of how they had failed me when I needed them most. About a year after my wedding, Jake and I were having dinner when he brought up something that had been bothering him. "I need to tell you something about that night. At our wedding." I looked up from my plate. "What about it?" "I knew something was wrong when you came back downstairs. You were different, distracted. I asked if you were okay, and you said you were just tired, but I knew that wasn't true. Why didn't you push me to talk about it?" "Because it was our wedding night, and I didn't want to ruin it with drama. But I've always regretted not pushing harder. If I had made you tell me what was wrong, maybe we could have handled it differently." There was no good way to handle it, Jake. No matter what I did, it was going to be a disaster. Maybe, but you shouldn't have had to carry that burden alone. And you definitely shouldn't have had to deal with your family's reaction without more support from me. It meant a lot to hear him say that. Jake had been supportive throughout everything, but knowing that he had sensed something was wrong that night and had been thinking about it all this time made me feel less alone. Emma and I continued to rebuild our relationship, but it was slow going. The trust between us had been severely damaged, and it took time to heal. She was dealing with her own trauma from the divorce and the realization that her marriage had been built on lies. I was dealing with the aftermath of being ostracized by my family and having my character attacked publicly. We started going to therapy together, which helped. Having a neutral third party guide our conversations made it easier to address the hurt and resentment we both felt. Emma was able to express how betrayed she felt by Derek's lies, and I was able to express how abandoned I felt by her decision to believe him over me. "I was so scared that you were right," Emma said during one session. "If Derek was cheating, it meant my whole life was a lie. It was easier to believe that you were mistaken than to face the possibility that my marriage was a sham." "I understand that," I said. "But when you chose to believe Derek, you weren't just doubting what I saw. You were calling me a liar. You were saying that I was the kind of person who would make up something so horrible about your husband." "I know. And I'm sorry. I was protecting myself, but I hurt you in the process." It took almost 2 years for Emma and me to fully repair our relationship. Even now, there are moments when the old hurt surfaces, but we've worked through most of it, and our bond is stronger than it was before. Going through something so traumatic and coming out the other side has taught us both what really matters. My relationship with my parents never fully recovered. They're polite to me, and we see each other at holidays, but the warmth is gone. They never acknowledged their role in what happened, and I've never been able to forgive them for choosing Derek over me. It's a loss that I'm still grieving. Recently, Emma told me something that brought everything full circle. She had run into Melissa, Jake's cousin, at a coffee shop. Melissa had approached her and, unprompted, confessed to the affair. She said she's been carrying the guilt for 2 years, Emma told me. She wanted to apologize for not speaking up when you were being attacked by everyone. She said she was too much of a coward to tell the truth. What did you tell her? I thanked her for finally being honest, but I told her that her apology was about 2 years too late. The damage was already done. It was satisfying to know that Melissa was living with guilt over her cowardice, but Emma was right. Her confession now didn't undo the months of hell I had endured because she was too selfish to speak up. Looking back on everything, I don't regret telling Emma the truth about Derek. Even knowing how much pain it would cause, how much it would cost me, I would do it again. My sister deserved to know that her husband was cheating on her, and she deserved to make an informed decision about her life. What I do regret is how naive I was about my family's reaction. I thought that telling the truth would be enough, that my family would believe me because they knew me. I didn't understand how powerful denial could be, or how far people would go to protect a comfortable lie. I learned that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't get you vindicated. Sometimes it just gets you punished. But that doesn't mean you stop doing the right thing. It just means you have to be prepared for the consequences. Emma is doing well now. She's been dating someone new for about 6 months, a guy named Marcus who seems genuinely kind and honest. She's more cautious now, more aware of red flags, but she's not letting Derek's betrayal prevent her from finding love again. Jake and I are stronger than ever. Going through this crisis together showed us what our marriage is capable of weathering. We're talking about starting a family soon, and I'm excited about the future we're building together. As for Derek, I heard through the grapevine that he got married again about a year after his divorce from Emma was finalized. I feel sorry for his new wife, but I've learned that you can't save people who don't want to be saved. Some people have to learn the hard way. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about family, loyalty, and the cost of telling the truth. I learned that blood doesn't always mean unconditional support, and that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the quickest to turn on you when it's convenient. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I survived being ostracized by my family. I survived having my character attacked publicly. I survived watching my sister choose her cheating husband over me. And not only did I survive, but I came out of it with a clearer understanding of who I am and what I value. I don't need my parents' approval to know that I did the right thing. I don't need the extended family's validation to know that I'm not a troublemaker or a liar. I know who I am, and that's enough. Sometimes people ask me if I would handle things differently if I could do it over again. The answer is no. I would tell Emma the truth about Derek, even knowing the price I would pay for it. Because at the end of the day, I have to live with myself, and I couldn't live with staying silent while my sister was being betrayed. The truth has a way of coming out eventually. It took Emma 2 years to fully accept what I had told her that day, but she got there. Derek's lies caught up with him, just like they always do. And the family members who attacked me had to confront the fact that they had been wrong. I'm not saying it was worth it, because the cost was enormous. Losing my parents' trust and support, being publicly humiliated, watching my family rally around a man who was betraying my sister, all of that was devastating. But I'm saying that I can live with the consequences of telling the truth in a way that I never could have lived with the consequences of staying silent. If someone reading this is in a similar situation, wondering whether to speak up about something they've witnessed, I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is different, and the cost of telling the truth can be enormous. But I can tell you that whatever happens, you'll be able to live with yourself if you do what you believe is right. As for my family, we're all still figuring out how to move forward. Emma and I are close again, but it's a different kind of closeness than we had before. We've both been through trauma, and we've both had to grow up in ways we didn't expect. My parents and I maintain a polite but distant relationship. They're proud of me in their way, but they've never acknowledged their mistakes, and I've never fully forgiven them. Maybe someday we'll be able to bridge that gap completely. Maybe someday they'll understand why I had to tell Emma what I saw, and why their reaction was so hurtful. Or maybe this is just our new normal, and we'll all have to make peace with it. Either way, I'm okay. I have Jake, I have Emma back in my life, and I have the knowledge that when it mattered most, I chose to do the right thing. That's not nothing. In fact, it's everything. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.